Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. In today's video I am doing something a little bit different that I've never done before, that I haven't seen many examples of, and maybe I'm going to find out why because it doesn't work. But what I would like to do today is take this. This is my Hoya Callistophylla black cat, which I absolutely love, but haven't seen much growth at all from it in terms of foliage. I have this long sort of runner tendril doing whatever it wants. It doesn't really seem to be enjoying the kind of trellis that I've made for it, and it just seems a real shame to have roots like that just out in the open air. And I've done quite a bit of research about Hoyas and the fact that they're an epiphyte, so meaning that they like to grow on other things, but they're not a pest. They don't take any nutrients from the plant that it's growing up, whether it be like a tree or rock or whatever. They're just sort of there, existing in their own little scenario, but using something else to help them climb. And I was doing a lot of research into, do people put Hoyas on moss poles? And I think the most common answer is no, and that's because they don't really size up as well as other plants like your monsteras, philodendrons and things like that. Their foliage stays relatively small in comparison to the size of a moss pole, so you just end up seeing a lot of pole and not much of the good stuff. So then I was just thinking of the other options out there, and because they're an epiphyte and they do grow up trees, I was thinking if I could use bark, like some sort of cork bark or something to use in place of my moss pole. And I tried to do research on this and how to do this, but it was more geared at mounting your entire Hoya on the bark, which is not what I want to do. I want to keep my Hoya in a pot in semi-hydro as is, but just replace what it's trellising on. So I've been trying to piece together all the information that I can find, or I could find, to kind of work out how to do that, if it would work, if it's a thing. And so far from what I can see, it's not really a common thing to do, but not unheard of. So that gives me some confidence that this isn't going to be a complete fail, hopefully. But it's just not really doing anything as is, so I don't really see the harm in trying something new. So I am going to attempt to probably repot this out of this pot and change its trellis to cork bark. So earlier I went and I got some cork bark. This is my piece. It is a round piece, as it very kindly states on the label. So it is sort of like a little tunnel. I got this from Pets at Home in the UK. It was £13.50 or something, which feels like it was expensive, but it's quite long, which is what I want, because I want to be able to kind of put it in there and not have to extend it or replace it really soon. But now that I've kind of got it here, the trellis is the tendril is quite tall, but maybe we can work something out. But this is basically what I want to achieve without the metal trellis. And like I said, I've never done this before. I didn't really find too much information about doing this online in the way that I want to do it. I found a lot about mounting the whole thing on here, but I don't want to do that. I don't want to hang it up. It's just not for me right now. I don't really have anywhere I want anything hanging, blah, 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 blah. So I think I'm just gonna, this isn't an informational video. because this is my first time trying. It might not work, it might not be successful. I hope that it is, because I think it would look really cool, but we're going to give it a go. So I have changed the angle a little bit just so we can get a better idea of what is going on. So first things first, I'm going to cut the label off of the bark. This, like I said, I got this from Pets at Home, and this is meant for reptiles, which I assume means, rightfully or wrongly, that it is safe for plants. There's no kind of nasty chemicals or stuff on it. And it does already come with a pre-drilled hole if you did want to mount it, which I think is quite cool. Oh, and there's one at the other end. I wonder why that is. Maybe people hang these up in sort of vivariums for their pets. I don't know. I've never owned a lizard or anything. So I feel like that's that for now. What I want to do is take the Hoya out of its little semi-hydro scenario. When I've just been looking at the roots through the cup, I can see some that don't look brilliant up at the top. These ones down here look really nice, but there's a few at the top that I feel look a bit rotten. So maybe that would help explain our sort of slow growth as well. This is also just a piece of it's bonsai wire actually, but they're quite malleable, so this is my makeshift trellis. So let's pull this out. Doesn't smell ideal, but oh wow, the root system is definitely bigger than I thought, which is cool. I don't necessarily need to get all of these rocks off, but I would like to get enough of them out of the way so I can just double check that there isn't or is rot and sort of deal with it accordingly. I can see some rot just quite close to the top here. It's not the most, but it is there. So I am just going to take those little scissors that I had earlier. These are nail scissors, but they're quite good for sort of more intricate plant things. And I am just going to make a few cuts where I'm not happy with what is going on with the roots. And it's not that much. So it won't sort of damage the plant. In fact, I think root pruning can help your plant sort of stimulate itself and get growing again if it's come to a bit of a slump. But I think the consensus is you shouldn't take off more than 1/3 of the root system, otherwise your plant can go into shock, which is obviously not good. So I've not taken off much at all. They just did not look like the healthiest pieces of root to me. Just going to put those aside. And yeah, I'm quite happy with what we're dealing with. I think that is a really nice size root system. I'm pleased it's grown. It appears to be mostly happy in semi-hydro. So now that I've done that, which is definitely the easy bit, I have to think about how I want to put my bark and all of this sort of together. I'm pretty sure I want it this way up because it's kind of got this hollow bit in the back, and I kind of envision this sort of section in my substrate to keep it stable. Or does that look better that way? I think it looks aesthetically more pleasing that way. But isn't that really annoying? Yeah, I'm gonna go with the less pleasing way because I just feel as if I'm gonna have to use quite a wide pot to get that. Oh, I suppose I could go like this. Okay, I think it looks better like that. Okay, fine. Fine. I don't know what pot I'm going to pot it in. I brought this one over just because I thought I was going to plant it this way round and there would be enough space in there. But now I'm having second thoughts. Now it's all going awry. I'm just not sure if that's enough space for this root system in here. I mean, I guess it is. But I think I would want something a little bit wider. I'm going to go and have a look and see if I have anything just a little bit wider. Okay, so I have this one, which is quite a lot larger. But wood. Okay, I think I'm going to go with this one. My reservation is I mean, the root system and this, not ideal. This one, I quite like that. You could argue it's still a bit too big, but I'm not too concerned. But this one is quite a bit of a jump. But I'm hoping because this will be in there taking up quite a lot of room that it's not really too drastic. And because I'm going to have a water reservoir, it should be fine. Okay, yeah, I've committed. Get that one out of the way. Pot, bark, plant, semi-hydro. So, I want to plant it into the substrate just because I feel as if that's going to give me the best sort of stability. I did think about keeping this sort of trellis and maybe putting it up there and obviously like bending it down this way or something to try and keep this out of the semi-hydro substrate, because obviously this is organic matter and it can rot its wood. But I think I'm going to just wrap the bottom that I want to go in here under the substrate in cling film to kind of protect it. I was going to put it in a cup. Oh, actually, no, I'm going to put it in this cup. I wanted to use a cup before, but that's when I thought I was going to be using this. And there's obviously absolutely no room in there. But no, that would work really well. Oh, okay, well maybe this has turned out really quite successfully. So from my research of people using bark to mount Hoya's ferns and all that kind of stuff, they say that you're not supposed to keep the bark consistently wet because that's just not how it is in nature. Obviously, sometimes it rains, sometimes it doesn't. So they go through wet and dry cycles, and that's what you want to try and emulate. So by keeping it in the semi-hydro without some sort of protection, it would be consistently wet, which could cause the roots, if they do decide to attach, to rot because they're just wet consistently. But if I have it in its own little, I think I'll fill this with semi-hydro and have it in its own little reservoir, I'll be able to top this up as and when I want, separate to the actual plant's sort of living quarters that I'll just treat normally with a reservoir 24/7, pretty much. Amazing. Okay, that's really cool. So I'm pretty much just going to reuse this semi-hydro, although there was like a tiny bit of rot. I probably shouldn't, but I don't think it was really that drastic. I'm just going to reuse it. So I just want to see where so I'm just trying to make it so the cup that the bark is sat in sits near enough flush with the edge of this pot as I can. And that is about there, really. So I am just going to fill that. So I am going to, I feel like this is going to be really awkward to do actually. Because this just wants to tip over. Okay, not ideal, but we'll do for the second. I'm just going to go and grab, okay, fine stuff acquired. let me just check I like this. I'm pretty sure I do. I feel like I can adjust that anyway. And this doesn't even need to be in here right now. That's making things much harder for myself. So, I'm gonna pop this in the front part of the pot, keeping the cup in there so I sort of know where my limitations are as in terms of space. And then I will just actually pop this back in just to see that I don't need to like turn the plant around or something, which I might try. So I'm just thinking about how I'm going to attach it to the bark and which way its roots are and how it's going to be best for me to sort of adhere it. Is that cool? I think that works. Okay, yeah, so I'm going to plant it that way around, I think. I'm hoping that I'll get leaves emerge from both sides so it doesn't really look as lopsided as it does. But I'm just going to backfill the rest of the larger pot with the semi-hydro, get it all nicely compacted in, and then come back to do the bark piece. Okay, so that is that all potted up in there. The cup is slightly higher than I would have liked, but c'est la vie. So now for the interesting part, popping the bark in. Ugh. So I think what I'm gonna do, oh my gosh, I nearly ripped the entire cup out, which would not be good, is I am going to, oh my gosh, fill this cup a little way with the semi-hydro. This might actually be better to use the core stuff with, but never mind. So I've just filled it to literally like my first knuckle, and then I'm going to try and pop this in a way that I think works well for the plant and aesthetically, hopefully. So I think about there. So I'll like smush it in as much as I can so it's got good stability, and then I'm just gonna fill. I'm actually gonna fill in the top. Like as I said, it's like a trunk, so I'm gonna fill into here. This is so messy. That's pretty stable, actually. Okay, cool. Okay, well, this is what it's looking like. I feel like it doesn't look too bad. Like I said, I wish the cup was slightly lower. I'm just going to move this semi-hydro mat out the way for me to deal with later. And now I'm going to try and adhere this sort of tendril to my bark. I don't have, obviously, the things that I would ideally use. A lot of people use the like fishing wire because it's nice and thin and clear or transparent. I also don't know whether to put some sphagnum moss sort of like in these little crevices and craters to sort of attach the roots, like push the roots into them because it's all nice and moist, and then from there they'll hopefully go into the bark. I think I might do that. So I've grabbed my sphagnum moss and I'm just going to take a little bit of it out. It's already damp, but I do have my little sprayer here if I do need it. And I think what I'm going to do, because when I've seen people mount plants to the bark, they always take the roots, wrap them in sphagnum moss, then wrap everything to the bark with the wire. I think I'm going to see sort of how this is going to go up the bark, find little areas that the roots are going to be making contact with, put like a really small amount of sphagnum moss there, and then wrap it with some twine. I know that this is organic and it will degrade, but I'm hoping that I only need it there for sort of the initial stages, for when it's rooting itself, and then once it's rooted I can sort of just take it off. That's what I'm thinking anyway. So I will zoom you in and we can try this together. Okay, so my first little section is going to be these 2 roots down the bottom, and I feel like they will sit really nicely on this little crevice here. So I'm going to take some sphagnum moss and just kind of press it in. And then take this section, kind of, maybe I should wrap the roots in a little bit of moss, because I feel like, I don't know whether these roots have just, because they've been so, these are like kind of probably one of the oldest pair of aerial roots on here, that they're sort of a bit dried up now, that maybe they'll be a bit too brittle to do this with. They might just break, I'm not sure. I think if I take it around sort of the back of the trunk here, sort of press them in like that, and then wrap my twine, that could be quite good. I could use the Velcro for this, the garden sort of Velcro, but oops, this is just a little bit more aesthetically pleasing for now, because at least it's a sort of similar colour-ish to the bark. Where's the end of my twine? There. So I'm just trying to wrap it in a knot, like a loose knot, so I can, I'll do that first. Okay. Take 2 or 3. Take a little bit more and just cover the back of, there's like a node here as well, so if I cover the back of the node, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing to do, but it seems like the correct thing at this point in time. Then I'm just going to tighten this, give it a little bit more, give it a reposition. And that is quite nice in there. And then I'm just going to wrap this around again to get it a bit tighter, and then just tie it off at the back. Okay, I feel like that looks quite good. Okay, so moving on up to sort of deal with this section. There's a sort of deep groove running along the back here that's quite difficult to show. Turn it around this way, you can see it just there. Just up in this section here that I'd quite like to maneuver these into, which I probably should have thought about before doing this section down here, but I didn't. But maybe I can get some of them in there, because I think that'd be a good place to be able to pop some sphagnum moss. Oh, there we go. Oh, that's almost perfect. Okay. There we go, I think that angle might be slightly better. So I'm just going to take some more sphagnum moss and pop it in that crevice. I'm kind of pulling it apart a little bit so it's not in clumps, just to make it easier for the roots to hopefully go through. I'm not sure if this sphagnum moss is a necessary or beneficial step. As I said, I've never done it before. I'm just trying to take all of the things that I've seen and apply it to my situation, which is sometimes the only thing you can do. And trying things, new things, is always a learning experience, and I don't think it should put anyone off trying, because if you don't try, you don't know, you won't learn, and you won't grow. Oh my gosh. Someone needs to make that into a kid's song. One of those, what do you call it? Those anthems they say to themselves in the morning. So I'm just going to take another piece of the twine. This is just garden twine, and wrap it around to try and secure this where I want it. So I think that looks quite good. I mean, the twine is a bit unfortunate around these sort of areas, but that just is what it is, I feel. That's what happens when you don't have all the right tools and you're a little bit impatient. So moving on up, and I feel like it's just going to sit really nicely in that groove. I mean, up here, I think these are 2 little leaves, or where 2 little leaves would form, just on this section here. So I'm kind of a bit like, oh, I don't really want to cover them in moss, but I might. We will see. Just do another little section of it. Perfect. So moving on up to sort of our last section, I think that little nook is such a good place to pop everything. Just going to see if I can make you slightly higher. Okay, so just going to pop this up in here. This is a little bit of pink sphagnum moss, which is exciting. So there aren't really any actual aerial roots up here, but I can see places where I think they will potentially emerge from. I think they can emerge from pretty much anywhere, to be honest, so just getting good contact. I'm not very happy about that bit being so far up. I might stick some moss under there. If I can push this bit up, maybe pull it down. Yeah, I might have to stick some moss under there, I'm not sure. I could use the rest of this to kind of push that bit down. Just pop some moss. Pick a little bit more. Then just bring that over and tie it in the back. Okay, so that is it all sort of secured. It looks pretty crazy. Okay, so this is what it is looking like so far. Pretty gnarly, actually. I feel as if I've kind of taken a strange route up the bark, if I'm honest. Like, looking at it like now that I've just finished, I feel as if I'd have been better coming up this channel, because then it's sort of more forward facing as opposed to kind of almost going around the back. But never mind. Hopefully if the leaves that grow next are this size, then it won't really matter. But I think that looks pretty cool. I'm going to trim off these excess pieces of string. Hopefully this will root into this piece of cork bark. I am going to fill up the cork bark sort of reservoir a little bit, and then I'm going to fill up the normal one to probably about there and just keep that one topped up. I will let this one dry out. I'm not sure what frequency yet. It'll be interesting to see if the sphagnum moss stays dry through the sort of reservoir, dragging it up into the bark and then subsequently to the moss. If not, I will just give it a little spritz, especially as these roots are, they're not new roots, but I'm trying to get them to root, so as they're sort of being manipulated, I want to give them the best chance that they can have. But I think it looks quite cool, and I really hope it works, because I feel as if it would look very prehistoric, which is what vibe these leaves give me. I think they're really, really cool. This is the first time I've done anything like this before, so any feedback and constructive criticism is appreciated, and hopefully I can make this a success. And if it is, then hopefully you guys will have a sort of little something to not replicate, but you know, do your own thing of. So yes, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.